everyone, and welcome to today's French Press Bookworks Roundtable. So we're joined by completely new authors today that you haven't seen yet, which I'm really excited for. We have Amanda Gernitz-Hansen. She is part of the class of 2017 for Pen Name Publishing. And then we're joined by Ambriehl Khalil. She is part of the 2015 class of Pen Name Publishing. She wrote the LGBTYA Coins in the Coffee Cup, and we're going to have a new book coming out from her in November 2017 called 1000 Paper Cuts. So we're really excited for that. Hi, ladies. How are you today?
Hi. I'm doing pretty well. It's the end of my day. I think it's the beginning of your guys' days.
Yeah, we've got nighttime, afternoon, and morning.
Yeah, it's 11:30 here.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going global here. So.
Yeah. My eye is all watery. Sorry about that.
Thanks for joining us. So, hopefully.
Crying over here now.
Oh, I know your first roundtable is so exciting. So
really on all the waterworks.
Some really cool news before we get going is if you've been joining us, you know that we have these wonderful mugs. Exciting. Yeah, all of our mugs have sold out. All we did was put them on Instagram, and our first order of mugs has completely sold out. So if
wonderful.
You were just off of Instagram. So if you were wanting one, we still have some people who want some. We're starting a wish list soon.
Okay.
And then so you can still order these. Clearly my coffee is still setting in, so I'm kind of like
No, I'm on tea today, not coffee. It's different for me.
Oh, so then you would do good with one of our nighttime mugs that are like sleep and read for the tea.
Yeah,
I might
do both. One for the morning, then one for the night, you know?
There you go. So is anybody reading anything right now that's really good? What are you guys reading?
So as you know, I read a lot of poetry, and I do have a book that actually just came in the mail yesterday. It's called Whiskey, Words, and a Shovel. I have it here. This one here, it's quite small.
Ooh.
But like I've only just started it, so it's just another book of poetry, you know, like all the others. It's not too exciting, but it's really nice. I like.
Can you put that cover back up again?
Yeah, sure can. It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, beautiful. I love the minimalism.
Pretty. Yeah, me too.
Some of the poetry books just have the best covers. Like there's this one here.
Oh.
Yeah.
I like
Dirty
that.
Pretty Things.
Yeah, and then there's this one. These are all the most recent books I've read. And then there's also this one.
I've heard of that one. Okay.
Nice. I like the minimalism going on there.
Yeah, well, it's my thing, so.
Very
No, but
cool.
yeah, it's good. It's I'm yet to finish it and then have thoughts on it and see what it's like. But so far the poetry in it is quite nice, which is
Good.
Substantial.
What about you, Amanda? What have you got on your bookshelf?
Right now I'm reading Before the Fall, and I don't have the actual book, but I just realized I have the slipcover. Hold up the empty slipcover. The book's actually in my purse because I always have books in my purse.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but I'm reading that, and I just started it the other day, and it's really, really good. Like, I've been staying up really late wanting to keep reading it, which is good. I like books like that. So that's about a plane crash, and 2 people survive. I don't know if anyone knows what it's about, but it's really, really good. Wow. And I just finished before that. I read Inked by Eric Smith. He's a literary agent that lives somewhere on the East Coast, and it's very dystopian. It's sort of like Divergent. It really reminded me a lot of Divergent, but it was like you get tattoos when you come of age, and it was interesting. It was different. So that's what
Mortal Instruments, kind of in a way, where they.
Yeah, I haven't read that one. That it does sound like that too. I've read descriptions of that. So yeah, it was interesting. I think I'm gonna like Before the Fall better. But
Very cool. I always like to know what people are reading, and Stephen King says that if you don't have time to read well, you don't have time to write well. And so the purpose of today's discussion is to give advice to new authors. So advice number 1 is always be reading. So you can never read too much. So
how do you expect to like write well if you're not reading? You know, you need to vocabulary and your mindset, and by reading that it opens up so much more stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. And you need to read in the genre that you write too.
Yeah.
So we have a writing group on French Press Bookworks that's run through Slack. And then I'm also a part of another writing group because I believe that authors should really take advantage of writing groups and maybe be part of more than one. And what always amazes me is in this other writing group that I'm in, there's about 3,000 people. It's Facebook based. People say I'm writing YA, but I've never read YA. Can you beta read for me and check my sentence structure? And I'm like,
how do you even know what to write?
Exactly. Or people that suddenly go into wanting to write like the epic American novel and don't read any type of classic or long structured books or don't have the vocabulary for it. So how do you write well if you don't read? So advice one.
Yeah. I would definitely endorse advice one.
Yes. So let's talk, ladies. Let's say somebody comes to you and they're like, there's a statistic out and we put it on Twitter and it's actually really highly debated on our Twitter. Every time it comes out, it starts like an argument, which is really kind of odd. Like some person wrote an entire blog about this book fact about how it wasn't true. And I was like, wow, okay, first of all, we're just putting out, a small book fact. It doesn't mean that we did the survey, but the survey says that 80% of people, primarily in America, want to write a book. And it turns out that it was only like some small survey in Michigan of like 200 people, but everyone used everyone. I found that out in the blog that the person wrote. But every time you talk to somebody, how many times have you run into someone who says, I'm writing a book or I want to write a book?
So many, like literally everyone. I think it's everyone's dream to just, have that. So they can be like, oh, I published a book, or write a book,
Yeah. I would agree. Most people that I talk to have said it, and most people then say, but I don't think I can.
Yes, and that's why we're having this conversation, because I don't think I can. How would you, somebody says to you, I want to write a book, but I don't think I can. What would you tell them, first of all, just to get over the I don't think I can?
I would always, people have asked me this actually, and I always just say, well, you have to just start writing, even if you think it's crappy when you're writing it. Like, so what I did, because I wanted to write books and I didn't really know how to stick with anything. It was an issue I had several years ago where I just quit everything I started. And so what I did was I started a blog where I had to write every single day. So I posted on a blog for 365 days in a row. And it usually was like, this is what I did yesterday. This is the run I went on. Like, it wasn't anything that interesting. And obviously I didn't have very many followers, but it was more for me. So I had it and I could put out in the world, I actually wrote today. And if you're interested, you can see it. And if you're not interested, cool, whatever. But so that's what I had to do. So I always tell people, you have to start almost scheduling writing. If you really want to do it and you're serious about it, you have to sit down and do it.
Yeah, even if you're totally uninspired, just write anything. Write what comes to your mind. Journaling helps as well. If you're just writing your thoughts into a journal, it just gets it out of your head and onto paper, no matter what it is. And sometimes you can find a sentence from what you wrote and actually create something from that, you know?
Yeah,
exactly. That's a really good point. And so when I was younger in my teens, I would write all the time. And then when I got into my 20s, I quit writing because I grew up before the time of social media. So people who loved books were really kind of, nerdified. So I wish Bookstagram, was back then. I could be a queen of the internet now. But I gave up on the reading and the writing because it wasn't like a viable lifestyle kind of like it is now. And I grew up in a small town. So we also, in the Midwest, we also didn't know about all the opportunities out there. So now what I do, and this started actually on a plane. I was on a plane. It was a 17-hour plane ride from Chicago to New Delhi. And I was in my 20s and I was going nuts because what do you do for 17 hours? And all the movies were really bad movies. And so my Nook went dead, my iPod went dead, and so all I had left was a notebook. And so I just sat there and started writing, and then it brought all of that back. So now I always carry a notebook with me, and if I think of if I hear a new word, or if I hear somebody say something, or if I think of a description, I write it down. And maybe it's not for any particular book, but then at a future time, I might go through there and then get inspired in a piece that I'm writing by something that I wrote down that might work in a future work. So even if you're just writing down like one sentence or one quote or one color or something that you hear somebody says, you can always come back to that at a later time and kind of, you know, even like catalog different quotes that you could use in your book.
I like that.
Yeah. And
I like that advice.
Yeah. So let's say somebody is a new author and they're kind of, they've got started, and I think you might relate to this because once a new author gets started, a lot of times they think, oh my God, this isn't good. This doesn't compare to anyone.
Yeah.
What would you say to that person who starts and quits?
You know what? I think that a lot of people feel like that it's really hard to write a book, because it is, you know, you got to keep up with that entire story, and you got to be like, you just got to focus on that. And sometimes your mind wanders and you're like, oh no, you get halfway through it, you get bored with it, and you're kind of like, oh well, no, I don't want to do this anymore. But if you want to write the book, you need to keep going no matter what, because like then it pays off in the end. And eventually, like, I don't know what I'm trying to say, like it pays off in the end. If you just keep pushing through and doing it, then, you know, it becomes something completely different. It becomes something that you don't even expect it to become when you first start out. You know, because you can start off with an idea and then halfway through you're like, oh well, I don't like where this is going, and then you fix it up and it changes and then it just becomes something else entirely. Like that's what happened with both of my books that I've written.
Yeah. I was the person that quit for a long time, so I'm trying to think of what
what got you going again? Like what all of a sudden, what just made you write again if you quit?
I joined a writing group. I actually think that was the big turning point for me. It was my friend from high school was working at a small publishing company and started a writing group based on Meetup. And she was just like, I know you write, please do this with me, like help me start this because I don't want to go alone. Like I want to be able to have someone with me in case only creepy people show up or something like that. It was one of those really funny things that she was like, please do this. But then I actually did it, and we started, I think it was on like Google Chat, we would talk to each other about writing, and she and I had like every Thursday we would sit down and write for an hour and keep each other accountable on Google, like just chatting back and forth and stuff. And that's really what got me going again. And she actually wrote and published a children's book. I think it came out this spring. So yeah, she was able to kind of make her thing come true too. And she's writing her next one, and now I'm here, and it happened to work out for both of us.
Wonderful. That's really great.
Yeah.
So
it was one of the, I needed accountability. I needed someone to kind of be like, no, I'm doing it. You have to do it with me.
Yeah, so we have, like I said, we have the writers group, but then just in our personal family group, we have one of our channels. We use Slack. If anybody out there watching us uses Slack, and it's just for daily writing where authors can just put their word counts down. And so the husband, he thinks he's funny. He's sitting there going, oh, okay. So, and it's just like about accountability to where people can say like, oh, I wrote 400 words today. I wrote 700 words today. And then sometimes some of you guys power through and you're like, I wrote 4,783 words today. And the other writers are like, oh my gosh, you know, and I'm going to beat you. Yeah. And so having that accountability partner is really great. And it can be someone you know, or it can be someone you find. There's so many writers on Twitter. There's so many writers on Facebook. It doesn't have to be someone you know. Find an accountability partner to keep you going and encourage you. Great point.
Yeah.
Let's say somebody is nearing the end of their manuscript and they're wanting to submit it to a publisher, or they're wanting to look into self-publishing, but they don't even know where to start, what to do, or how to get that going. So what advice would you have for somebody who's at the end of their manuscript?
they need to do a lot of research. I know that I did a lot of research, but it's actually not as complex as people think it is. People think that like to publish your book you have to go through all of these stages, but really it's just submitting your manuscript to a company that you think that would be interested or that you are interested in as well. Like you just need to do your research. That's what I did. Like Google like actual publishing companies like Penguin and stuff, or all of them, and then just have a look, see what you think, and then it's basically just submitting it. Like that's kind of it, you know. It's not as complex as everyone seems to think. Oh, you need to do this, you need to send it out, you need to do this, you need to do everything. But like some of them do have specific guidelines and you need to edit your manuscript to meet those guidelines. But yeah, it's not as hard as people think. It's hard getting your book published and like someone to be interested in it, but you know, submitting it's different.
Yeah. I think one thing that I would recommend too is finding someone to read it before you submit it.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that you don't have plot holes and it's long enough and you tie all the pieces up, and just there's been a lot of stuff on Twitter. I don't know how involved you guys are in the like writing publishing community on Twitter. There's been a lot of stuff about issues in diversity and issues with representation and stuff. So if there's anything like that, just to make sure you have someone take a look at it before you submit it so that all the problematic things can maybe be looked at. But yeah, I think if you want to submit it, I mean, people are going to read it anyway, so you better find someone to look at it, you know?
Exactly. It's always good to have someone to read it before you end up doing it, because you might think it's amazing, and like not saying that it isn't, but it's good to have another person's opinion as well on top of that, because you could think that this story is amazing, it's incredible, but no one else has read it but you, and then you are like, okay, well, this is going to get published, it's going to be incredible, but then someone else reads it and they're like, it doesn't really make sense, like there's things in it that you need to be fixed.
Yeah.
And that's why it's good to have the other person.
Yep. And I took a class in college in like creative writing, like the full novel. And one of the things that she made sure to teach us before we left was an elevator pitch too. Because no matter where you're pitching your book to, whether it's a small press or you're trying to get a literary agent or whatever, you're self-published, whatever you're trying to do, you have to be able to boil down your plot into like 2 sentences that are intriguing enough that people will want to read it.
And that's hard. It is so hard.
It's so hard.
Into like just 2 sentences of that, or like even like a paragraph for the blurb. Like it's so hard to put your entire novel into that, to capture someone's attention. Because it's the hardest thing about writing a book, in my opinion, because I can't.
It really is, because you spend so much time writing like 50, 60, 70,000 words, and they're like, well, you actually need to describe it in 20 words, 50 words.
So if you don't know what an elevator pitch is, the idea behind an elevator pitch is and this is a sales technique for anything. So if you're any type of business person, you should have an elevator pitch. So the idea is you walk into an elevator and you notice you're in the elevator with someone that you idolize in your field, and you have maybe 10 floors to tell them what you're all about. So that is about 30 seconds on average. So for instance, like with Pen Name Publishing, our elevator pitch is that Pen Name Publishing is a boutique publisher of bold stories by bold voices. And we like to represent people that traditional publishing companies are too scared to represent. So that's like our basic. And then if I have a couple more floors, I throw in a few other pieces into there about some other things, like that we have a strong community, our authors work together, blah, blah, blah. But that's the basic elevator pitch. So do either of you have an elevator pitch for your book?
I put the blurb on my blog, and when people ask about it, like I just can't, like I'm not there yet to be like, oh, this is like, I say what it's about, but not in like a way that like, because usually it's just my friends asking, so I'm like, oh well, But then if anyone does want the actual thing, like I just send them what I had written for the back of the book, because, it kind of gives out the idea of the story, and that's what they want to hear, I suppose.
Yeah. I'm very bad at this. It's like, it's something I really need to work on. And it's one of those things I know I need to work on it, but I'm just really bad at it. So even for like, Twitter, for instance, has like pitching contests all the time. And sometimes, even though like I'm in pen name, I enter them just to practice. Like I've never submitted anything, but I just like, I need to see, does this get the point across? Does this make people interested? Does this, you know, do what it's supposed to do? For the book that's coming out this spring, I have tried so many different ways. I don't know how to do it in 10 floors. It's something about the plot. It's just like, it encompasses so much time. I just don't know how to do it.
Me too. I've been trying to come up with one for my next book, 1000 Paper Cuts, and I'm at a loss. Like, I just can't. The first one wasn't too hard, but like this one, I'm just like, how do I do it? Like, I can't do it.
We're gonna need your help, Dionne.
I'm there for you, ladies. So I love that you're doing the testing, and I think people get so tired of me saying in our author family chat group, test. A/B testing, test your newsletters, test your tweets. And so something that I have all of my authors do is anytime they write a blog, anytime they get a review, anytime they get a book blog review, to write 5 tweets for every blog or every review, and then 3 Facebook posts. And for one, you then have a listing of tweets that you can go to at any time to tweet out, or it allows you to test. So if one isn't working right, then you can take that out and enter a new one into the spreadsheet to find what is going to capture your audience. And this relates directly to a question that came up in the One Writing group, where there's a girl who's querying, and in her query, she didn't say anything about who she was as an author. And so I asked her, in this writing group, they don't know that I'm involved in publishing. I'm just an author, which is really great. Yeah. So I keep that really secret.
I won't give it away.
Yeah. Yeah, I might be giving myself away right now, but so in her query, I said, I don't know who you are as an author. So the query had some problems, but I love that she was asking people to help her with her query and sort it out. Yeah. Because like Ambriehl said, before you query, research and know what the publishing company A publishes. So we get a lot of nonfiction books, and we don't publish any nonfiction. And we get a lot of, we've had somebody who submitted an academic book to us before, but we clearly don't publish academic books. And so really, you're wasting your time if you're not researching who you're sending your manuscript to, and if you're not tailoring your query to the person that you're sending it to. So this girl's query said nothing about who she was as an author. And when I told her that, she said, well, I don't have a platform and I don't even know when to start it. So my big advice to authors is, as soon as you start writing a book, you should start expanding your presence online.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
First thing first, website and blog, and then start playing with social media. So do not submit your book until a publisher can find you online. And that's something that's really going on in the modern world. We just closed down the author platform series, but for brand new authors who haven't queried yet, who aren't working, who are really in that doubt process with their book, what would you ladies tell them about that first jump into starting that author platform and starting their presence?
You know what, I think it's really important to gain some kind of following before you launch into something massive like that, even if it is just a few people, you know, because it's important to have other, like, word of mouth is everything, you know. You tell someone to read your book and they enjoy it, they tell other people. That's how most of it, most of the promotion comes out now. But like, thank God for social media, because then people can just send out a tweet. But you need to know who you are on the internet, and I think just being real is really important as well. Like, sending out generic tweets and stuff that don't sound like you, who you are as a person, it doesn't really interest people. So if you have a Twitter and you're just tweeting like what you see other people tweeting, how are people going to be interested in you and want to support you? You know, it's important to gain a relationship with the people that are supporting you, because then, you know, they know that you're a good person and that they want to continue to support you, instead of just being an asshole, being like, oh, thanks for reading my book. Like, actually, I like to interact with people when they say, oh, I've read your book. You know, I talk to them about it because it's important, you know?
I was going to say interaction, so it goes exactly into what I was going to say too. Is you're never going to gain a following if you don't interact with people. It's if you're just putting stuff out and not responding to people who are replying to you. If you never like even retweet anyone, like you have to build that by building relationships. Yeah. Yep,
Yeah.
I would agree completely with that.
And a lot of new authors, there's social media popping up every single day. There's so many platforms. And a lot of times what they do is they make the mistake of jumping into all of them at once. So my advice would be start your website, get yourself dedicated into blogging. And once you've mastered the blogging and you have a tight website, then start with one social media platform until you master it and understand it and know how it works for you and you've gained a following, and then start your next. And then you'll get this kind of organic chain of reaction where some of your followers might join you on the next. But if you're trying to do every platform at once, it's really going to discourage you.
Yeah, it's going to be really overwhelming if you do that.
Yeah, and a lot of authors give up because they're like, oh my goodness. But it's really important because a publisher is not going to be writing your blogs. They're not going to be writing your personal tweets. They're not going to be running your personal Facebook page. So these are things that an author needs to do. And you really wouldn't want your publisher to do that anyway, because it's your brand. It's who you are. Why do you want somebody else telling you how to present yourself to the world? So get that on lockdown. Okay. Next final piece of advice to new authors here. Let's say, there's so much to talk about. We could talk about this all day long.
You could talk about it for hours, because there's just so much to cover.
I know. How do you cover it in just 30 minutes? So your favorite piece of advice that somebody has ever given you while writing? Or if you don't have any, because I keep my writing very private and I don't let anybody really read it yet. I have to break it out. I have to get those beta reads, But somebody just new advice. What is your best advice for a new author? They can be published, they can be looking for publishing, or they can just be starting out.
I think what I would say, it's kind of going off of what we were first talking about with reading, is where it's good to read in the genre you're writing. I think it's also good to read outside of the genre you're writing too, because otherwise you're never going to get new ideas. And no one's going to want to publish a book that's been published 8 times already. It's got to be different enough for there to be a hook. So what I've been doing this year especially is I've really been reading outside of the genre I like to write, just to kind of get fresh ideas, even learn new words, learn how to form sentences differently, just kind of learn. Like I read my first supposed horror just to try to get something a little bit darker. It was that In a Dark, Dark Wood. It wasn't actually horror. But yeah, we've talked about this before.
I threw the book across the room and I have no shame for doing that.
But stuff I would never have picked up otherwise, but it was just sort of to get a different way to tell a story, I guess. So I think that's what I would say, is make sure you're reading what you're writing, but also read outside of what you're writing too.
Yeah, and if you read something you don't like, understand why you didn't like it. Was it the plot? Was it the character? Was it the language? Was it too predictable? And figure out what you didn't like about that book, make notes, and then compare those notes to your manuscript.
Yeah.
What's your advice, Ambriehl?
I think that you need to, as she said, I think you need to write what you want to read as well.
Yeah,
I think that's so important, because if you're read completely all different genres, understand all of how writing works in different genres and stuff, but write what you would read. Because if you're going to write something and you're not going to ever read it again, or you're not going to be happy with it, you're just like, oh well, this is what people want, then it's not going to be true to you. You need to be writing something that you would happily read, that you would see in a bookstore and be like, oh, that looks interesting, I'm going to read that. Because then that creates you as a person of how you write. So I write young adult and poetry and stuff like that, but I read young adult and I read poetry. I read other genres as well, but I don't write that. I just understand it, And I think that when you're writing a manuscript and you're just doing everything and you feel like it's not 100% perfect yet, just edit. Like, you can never stop editing, you know? And then, but there gets to a point where you're like editing it so much that it's not becoming what it was to you in the first place. Like, just edit all the time, but to a extent, you know? So like,
at some point you
always
have to
gonna
stop editing and start pushing it out in the world.
Exactly. So like, do your first draft, read it, edit it again, and then just every time you go back, you're going to find a mistake. Like, that's just it. You're always going to find a mistake or something that you're like, oh, why did I write that? I don't like that. You know, I don't like that sentence. But you just got to realize that, you know, it's fine. It's fine. It's done now.
There is a point where things have to be done. It's like a fine painting. We have a book that came out this year. Not David's. I know we've talked a lot about David's editing process, but that was because I asked him to rewrite the entire book from the beginning. But we had another book that came out, and the editing, just editing and editing and editing, and we signed off on the editing, and then the author came back like, I need to change these sentences and I need to add this description. I'm like, buddy, your book is already in formatting. Like, we are done. You know, we've been doing this for 9.5 months. You've had 15 editing sessions.
There's a point, man.
Yeah, you know, I mean, even sometimes a painter signs off on their painting and they'll go back and look at it and go, oh, that brushstroke is out of place. It's never going to be perfect for everybody. And that's really hard to get over, because people, if you look at the popular books, people love them, people hate them.
Yeah.
There's so much controversy with every single book, and it's hard, you know. You receive like one piece of criticism, and you're like, this is the end of the world. Like, they don't like it. Like, I hate it. Like, what do I do? Because I hate it. And you just want everyone to be happy, but not everyone is going to be happy with what you put out. You're never perfect, you know. Nothing is ever perfect. Everyone's going to have something to say about it.
It's growth. You have to allow yourself to grow. And if you look at a lot of the popular authors, some of them started off with books that once you read a book that like maybe like their 10th or 12th book, and then you go back to their first book, you're like, whoa. And you see the change. It's really rare, or it takes a very good editor for somebody to come out with just an amazing, mind-blowing book. And of course you get like 20 to 30 of those every year from new time authors that are highly, highly talked about, but 4,000 books are published every single day. So when you're looking at, I mean, my math right now might be mad. What is it, like 1.2 million or 120,000? One of the two. Big difference there. It starts with a 1 and a 2 somewhere in there.
So both of them, it's fine.
Yeah, whatever. It's a really big number for the entire year. So when you look at that number and you take 20 or 30 out of that, I mean, that's, you know, like 0.1%. So again, I'm not a math genius here, but you know.
It's okay, we don't need math.
Yeah. So it, you know, at some point you just have to let it go, because you can edit it to death and kill a story that might have been really good. So yeah. I interrupted you, Amanda. You were going to say something.
Oh, I was just going to say, I really liked what Ambriehl said first, where you have to write what you want to read, too, because it made me think of, there's so many stories of songwriters who hate performing certain songs because they wrote what people wanted to hear and not what they wanted to read, like, or to listen to. Like, the one that comes to mind right away was, I just listened to a podcast about Nirvana, and Kurt Cobain hated the Smells Like Teen Spirit. Hated that song, and that's like their biggest song. So it's just sort of funny that like it proves the point that you really have to write what you want to read, because otherwise you won't be able to champion it at all.
Yeah, and I think people realize when something is disingenuous too, whether it's your tweets, like we said before, whether it's your Facebook page. If you're just putting out what people want to hear, and if you're not letting part of yourself kind of bleed out into that, people are going to notice, and they're going to
they can tell when you're fake. They can tell when you're faking it, and they can tell when you're being real and genuine. And then I think that's how most people gain their audience, by being who they are, because they attract people, you know, from just being themselves. Like, that's the best piece of advice you can give anyone who's starting like writing, who's starting like trying to gain a platform. Be yourself. Like, literally be yourself. Don't be anyone less than that.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, well, this was a really great discussion, and I hope that it helps some new authors out. So if new authors out there want to continue this discussion and talk to our authors, I'm going to give them a second here to tell you how you can find their website, their social media, and their personal blogs, but you can chat with us right now on Twitter at FP Bookworks. You'll get the French Press Bookworks team. You can ask questions if you're a new author. You can join our writing group on FrenchPressBookworks.com. It goes through the Slack application, so you can put that onto your computer or onto your phone, and you can chat as we go. You can talk to our family authors as well as some other authors about anything you have questions on. Just find an accountability partner, get things kind of rolling for you. It doesn't matter if you've written yet or if you're planning to write. We are there for you because we love to write and talk about writing. It's a really fun group. I'm always in it. I'm like, oh, wait, I have to go work now. And we have people from all over the world that are in the writing group right now. So that's really great. You get a lot of different viewpoints. So you can also catch up with us on Facebook. We're not quite as Facebook active. I hate Facebook.
No.
So, I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. You know, like Facebook has 1 billion users, and I train authors how to use Facebook, but I personally hate it. So you can talk to us on there. We might not talk to you back. In the words of Ralph Pullins. Oh, you know what? That reminds me. Ralph Pullins could not make it tonight, but he had some really good advice. He says that
he did have good advice.
He did. You know, Ralph is just amazing. He's got to come back. My best advice for new authors is to stop looking for advice and write all the time as hard as you can. Keep writing, keep moving forward, and never get comfortable.
That is good advice.
Yeah, so that's from
He's very wise.
Ralphie. I like to call him Ralphie. And then Fatty Hansen said, that's my advice too. So way to go, Mike, plagiarizing. All right, ladies, tell us about your book. Tell us about your website and how people can continue the conversation with you live.
You can tweet me at Ambriehl K. It's really not as difficult as it sounds. AMBRIEHLK. I'm always active on Twitter. You know, I'm always on it. So send a tweet. I'll reply instantly. There's also my website, ambriehlkhalil.wordpress.com. That's basically it. There's my Facebook too, but I'm not, as I said, I'm not active on it. My Instagram is a.mbsx. Send me a DM on there. I'm happy to respond. But then that's really it, you know?
Yeah, that's a lot though. So
I'm on every social media.
So I will put the links as well in the description here because I can tell you that even though Ambriehl says her name is not that hard, we misspelled it for the first 4 months that we were working with her. And it's an Arabic name, and I speak Arabic, so I have no excuses for why I misspelled it. And she kept going, Dionne, that's not my name. So the links will be down below here in a second. All right, you're up.
Okay, so I'm on Twitter. I respond pretty quickly on Twitter too. I'm Amanda Marie GH on Twitter and Instagram. I have the same handle on both. And then my website is browneyed20something.com, and that's where my blog is, and that's where you can find basically everything you'd want to know about me. So that's me, and I'm on Facebook too. I'm Amanda Hansen on Facebook, but there's probably a lot of Amanda Hansens. I don't know if you'd be able to find me.
And it's really cool because we actually found Amanda on Twitter. So we were doing a pitch fest.
That's right.
And so that's how we grabbed her out of the great pot of authors. The funny thing about 2017 is all of our authors that we're releasing, except for Ambriehl, come from Twitter. So, you know, social media works.
I found you guys on Twitter too, though. You followed me on Twitter in like 2014, and I was just like, oh, a publishing company. And then afterwards I went into it. I looked into it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, you did.
Okay, guys, the power of social media and Twitter. If you're a writer, get on it.
Seriously, Twitter. And there's so many writers on Twitter that you can talk to too. It's really cool.
Yeah, wonderful. And I always say this, but check out the writer websites, because if you're a writer, you need to have a website. So all of our authors have their own website. They're very well put together. They're full of personal writing, and it does really good for a writer just to see how different writers set up their websites. So from Ambriehl and Amanda to Ralph to Mike to Scott to David, everybody has a different flavor and a different branding. So if you need your author website, see what other people are doing and, you know, see what they put on theirs and do some research to make sure that you have something that people want to actually come to. So,
and find a platform you like, because if you don't like the platform you're on, you won't want to update it.
Yeah, exactly.
Find something you're comfortable with and you understand, you know.
Yeah.
WordPress can be tricky, but you know, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
WordPress. I get the emails that say, your WordPress is updated, and I'm like, no, it's going to crash on the website today. So our theme is currently 3 updates behind because WordPress just keeps updating, so I can't access all of our features. So I'm stuck in like emailing the theme creators like, hey, are you guys going to update anytime soon, or do I have to, you know, completely redo the website for the 7th time in 3 years?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we'll talk about author websites on a whole other new call because that's like an hour-long chat. So thank you, ladies, for joining us today. We were going to play a game, but we're going to save that for next time when we have more people because it's really fun and it's kind of embarrassing. So we want to embarrass people at once. So next week, off the top of my head, I can't remember what we're going to be chatting about, but you can find that on the French Press Bookworks website under Author Roundtables, and you can also see our past episodes on there as well. Leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, join us live. Sometimes we do giveaways, fun things like that. And everybody have a good morning, a good day, and a good night. All right. Thanks for joining us, ladies. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.